Hey everyone, welcome to episode 23 of That Gives Me Anxiety. Just getting back, recording this on April 13th, right before the episode comes out tomorrow on the 14th. I guess I didn't finish that sentence. Coming back from New York, visiting family for a week, and I'm tired. It was wonderful to sleep in my own bed last night. Amazing trip. Got to go to a New York Rangers game, see family, my youngest sister's 30th birthday, eat bagels, crush pizza, and I gained weight. Yeah, I was brushing my teeth and my stomach was jiggling. You just hate yourself a little bit after that. But what was I not? I wasn't going to have bagels, right? I live in South Carolina. There's no bagels that are worthwhile. It's funny, I stepped on the scale this morning after the teeth brushing incident. The number was much higher than it should be. And my thought was, oh, what? You're yelling at me? As if the scale was passing judgment on me. This inanimate object. Talk about projecting. Oh, what? You're yelling at me? Oh, gosh, that's another one for the therapist, huh? Speaking of therapist, what a segue. Crushing it, Pat. I have Katie Lear, who's a counselor and a play therapist. And we're going to be talking about how slime, yes, I said that so casually, slime can be helpful for kids in opening up in therapy. And we also talk about when is the right time to bring kids to therapy and all that good stuff. Yeah, Katie was incredible with explaining everything and explaining her work with Dungeons and Dragons and kids, which is amazing. It's so cool to hear. But all of this was stemming from being on Instagram and just the internet in general and seeing videos of slime and having like a Jerry Seinfeld moment. What's the deal with all this slime? That's awful. I'm so sorry. And so Katie was great in helping me understand how it's useful and why kids like it so much. Well, before we get to that interview, I want to remind you, if you're liking the show, to please remember to rate and review it, to check the show out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you're liking the show and want to support it and to support me, there's the Buy Me a Coffee link where you can donate to the show by buying me a coffee, which would be greatly appreciated. Wow, short intro today. I gotta go exercise. As always, thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Katie, and enjoy. Joining me now on the podcast is Katie Lear, who is a children's counselor. Katie, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, and you're more than just a children's counselor. So Why don't you describe to the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So my degree is in counseling, and I specialize in working with children with anxiety, especially tweens. I see a really broad range of ages, but most of my kids, and I think often the kids that I feel like I do the best work with, are probably 8 to 13 in that age range. So I'm a therapist, and then in addition to that, I'm also a play therapist and a drama therapist, which are sort of postmasters specializations that you can study and obtain as a therapist. One obviously uses play, particularly with children. And then drama therapists use theater techniques and sort of apply skills that we use in theater to therapeutic settings.
That's very interesting. I didn't know that, and I'll want to touch on that, especially. Yes. I took a lot of improv, and it felt like a lot of what is being taught in improv. The old joke is that people either get a counselor or take improv classes.
Yes,
because it feels very similar.
I think the Venn diagram the overlap is wider than you would think between improvisational stuff and therapy. And I think even as a therapist, especially working with kids, I often describe it as feeling like improv, because you don't know who and what is walking through the door. And especially if you see a wide age range, you might have a teenager come in one session and we're talking about relationship advice, and then you get a kid crawling in saying, I'm a dog, right? the next hour, and you're like, yes, you are. Like, yes, and.
Yes, and.
Figure it out. So it's sort of a fun, it's a really fun thing to have such a wide variety of experiences in the course of the day.
Yeah, that sounds
Love
so
it.
nice. Well, the
Yeah.
reason, or the initial reason for our discussion today is related to slime.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited to hear. It makes me feel like such an old man being like, what's the deal with these kids and their slime?
Yes.
But
Yeah.
what's the deal with these kids and their slime? Yeah, I'd love to hear about how you got started in it and kind of
Uh-huh.
what you're trying to do with it.
Absolutely. So I think I, like you, maybe was assumed that this was a trend a la the fidget spinner that would sort of burn brightly for a short period of time and
Mm-hmm.
then go away and we wouldn't see it again, and that it would probably pass through my playroom pretty quickly. But that has not happened. And I think that's really interesting. Like, it really has had staying power, which tells me that it's filling some sort of very meaningful or significant need for children, that they are continuing to be interested in this, they're continuing to ask for it. I do think part of it is just that it is fun. It's fun, it's expressive, it's joyful, and there's all sorts of scientific or clinical reasons that we could say that it's a valuable activity for therapy. But I also think any opportunity to experience joy and to find a sense of play is inherently therapeutic, kind of in the way that improv is inherently therapeutic. I think I started getting into slime as a therapy tool for two reasons. One was that I was looking for opportunities for sensory play in my playroom, and sensory everything, I feel like, is a little bit of a buzzword right now for parents, for anybody who works with children, finding opportunities for kids to engage their senses in maybe a richer way than we see with a lot of electronic toys and the super structured activities that kids spend a lot of their day doing. A lot of the kids that I work with kind of move from activity to activity to activity throughout the day. Their time is very scheduled, and they probably aren't getting as many activities to do messy things or open-ended creative play the way that earlier generations of kids did. So I feel like they're almost at a deficit for mess sometimes. They don't get the sort of tactile activities and activities that really engage things other than visual senses as much as they might otherwise. So I was looking for that. I'm the daughter of an occupational therapist, and they also really work a lot with sensory stuff. So I think I've always sort of had that mindset. But to be honest, I was also just looking for fun activities that could entice reluctant children to spend time with me if they were new to therapy, because it can be really scary. It's not the most natural thing for a child to come into a room with a stranger they don't know and sit by themselves and talk about vulnerable things for 50 minutes. You know, as adults, even, it can be very awkward, but it's just not an experience that children always have. And I find that having a few really like high value, really exciting, enticing things can make it easier to break the ice and to get kids invested in the process and willing to give it a try. And then usually once we spend some time together, it's much easier. But that was also a hope of mine, was just it's something that's a good way to break the ice and get to know somebody. That's low pressure. You don't need a particular skill. There aren't rules, and it's often very exciting because it's like a sometimes activity at home, but it can be a like every time activity in my office, because we don't have to worry so much about messing up the kitchen or something.
Right. So let me get this straight. In today's day and age, you're supposed to be drinking a ton of water, doing yoga, making sure you and your whole family is happy, strike a good work-life balance, exercise, read books, watch movies, eat healthy meals, be a big part of your community, and get 8 hours of sleep. It's unrealistic. It's too much. Well, that's why there's Instacart to take a little bit off your plate, or help put a little bit on your plate. Oh, I'm so sorry. Using Instacart, you search for all your favorite foods and items that you need from the grocery store, fresh produce, all your favorites, everything you want, and they deliver it to you. They go to the store and do your shopping for you. Just remove it from your to-do list, just with a few clicks. And you'll have your items delivered to your door in as fast as an hour. It's pretty quick. And through the link in the episode description, they're offering free delivery on your first order over $35. But you got to make sure you click the link in the description. That tells Instacart that this show sent you, and it helps support the show. And you can also take advantage of the free delivery. So yeah, be nice to yourself. Give Instacart a shot. You mentioned one of the reasons why you have it is for sensory reasons.
Yeah.
Is that you're more in touch with your mental state if you're running through or engaging your senses?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different reasons for sensory play and a lot of different, I think, possible benefits from it. But as a therapist, what I'm usually most interested in is sensory play as an opportunity for mindfulness and for grounding. If you think about a lot of the mindfulness practices that adults are taught, they often focus on physical sensations or sensory information, whether it is focusing on the flame of a candle or focusing on the sounds that you hear in the room or even on the physical sensation of your own breath. Sensory awareness is a big part of mindfulness. And for children, sensory rich activities really key them into the here and now. When you are really fully engaged and paying attention to the sensory information around you, you are not likely to be worrying about the thing that you're saying and how does it sound, or worrying about what's going to happen next in your day, or reevaluating that thing that happened 3 hours ago, or thinking about homework. It's a really easy way to help ground a child in the present moment, which is often something that we want to work on in therapy.
Yeah, that's very good explanation of that. Yeah, that helps me understand that. So it seems like there's a few different instances in which you're handing slime to a child, but just to get a bit of I know that's what a sentence.
Yes, but that's play therapy, man. It's wild. It's not like other kinds of counseling. Yeah,
I love that. But just to get like a for instance, you hand me some slime and I start playing with it. Do you start being like, so how's school? Or is that how it comes into play?
So actually for me, usually, yes, we do like talk and play for sure. But often the big kind of the heart of the activity is actually making it together in the office. That is really the bulk of the activity, is creating it. And so for me, I try to incorporate as much possible sensory information as I can into that process. So we have the glue, we have the glitter for visual stuff, we have the food coloring to look at different colors, and essential oils so that we can talk about smell and scent, and we focus on the sound of the slime. It can be a really multi-sensory experience. And I find that making the slime and having a child be able to make all of those choices along the way is really therapeutic, because it's an opportunity to be in control. Kids often in life are not super in control of what they are doing, how much of the material they are using, how they're allowed to make something. And it's really exciting for kids. And I think in a basic way, therapeutic to even just say, I like this and I don't like that. I don't like the way this one smells. I want to do this one. I want to add more food coloring. What happens if we add more glue? And having an opportunity to be in control can be really empowering and really helpful, and teaches a lot about stuff like impulse control and cause and effect. It's not uncommon for us to make one and it doesn't work out because we added way too much shaving cream or way too much glue, and now it just sort of like won't come together. And it's a very low stakes way to experience failure and to experience what happens when we are not doing things in moderation. So that whole process, I think, is to me the most therapeutic part of the experience. But I also find that kids in general are able to engage in talk therapy more when they are also doing something with their hands, right? Or doing something with their bodies. It's not the most natural thing for kids to just sit on a couch and talk for 50 minutes and say, I guess this all started back when bada bada.
Yeah,
it's not,
exactly.
Not how it works. Yeah. But there is something really amazing that happens as kids are sort of working the slime or doing some sort of sensory activity that is repetitive, that is tactile, that it frees them up to speak, and that I often hear more and get deeper into conversations when children have something else to focus on and they don't just have to stare directly into my eyes the entire hour in an office that's set up like a living room.
Yeah. Well, I feel like there's a lot of kids' toys out there now. Like there's I don't know what you call it, but it has like the pop, like they can be shaped with the things.
Oh, yes. the poppets. Yeah, or the pop bums. I don't actually know the name, but I have many.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's like, I guess it goes in line with what you're saying about, I mean, outside of therapy, why do you think these toys are enjoyable to kids?
Yeah. Well, I think you're exactly right. You're right to make that link between something that's sort of sensory but simple, like, sorry, I'm in a fidget toy, like one of those popping toys, or gosh, there's like tons of them now. There's ones that are just like stretchy noodles and like finger traps and stuff that I think that many children need some kind of sensory input in order to focus, that it actually helps them focus, and that fidgeting for many kids is not an attempt to not pay attention. It's a way to pay attention. It's a way of soothing yourself and finding an outlet for that energy that then allows you to focus on the conversation and allows you to focus on the task that you're doing. So sometimes we'll see kids in schools doodling or fidgeting, and it looks like they're not paying attention, but really that activity is helping them calm down enough, settle their nervous system enough so that they can listen and learn. And I think that is true in counseling as well.
Yeah, that's great. This may be a tough question because you may not have the data, but
yeah,
I feel like society is talking about anxiety in a way that kids and adults are more anxious now than in the past. Do you think that there are more anxious kids, or we're just better at spotting it?
That is such a good question. You're right. I don't have the hard data in front of me, but I feel like it's probably like a yes to both question, based on not data, but based on my own thoughts and experiences. Yeah. I do think that kids today are under stress in a way that previous generations were not. I think that social media and the internet is just this huge force in children's lives that we haven't really studied, but we know can, I think, cause stress, especially for vulnerable kids, and academic demands are really high. This pandemic has been a whole situation for kids and continues to be. So I think there are added pressures and stress on children that are likely leading to more symptoms of anxiety than we might have seen in the past. And also, I think for the better, our emotional literacy as a culture is getting better, and our openness to therapy has improved. And so I think it's both, that there might be an increase in anxiety, but also an increase in our ability to notice it and get help for it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, even within my own self, 5 years ago, I don't know if I would be open to, I'm an adult man, and I don't know if I would have been ready for therapy, but reading about it and listening to other people talk about it, I think that just the more conversations there are, because it's so helpful. Oh my gosh, like not ignoring mental health is such a good thing.
Yeah, and I think in our generation too, when I grew up, therapy was not really something that you spoke about with your friends or that you advertised that you were going to. And it's been really interesting to see that the children that I work with now generally do not have that sense of taboo about therapy.
Great.
You know, there's like therapy memes. Everybody memes about going to therapy, but even younger kids are very open to it and see it just as another form of healthcare, and do not see it as having that stigma that I think I was taught at a young age to associate with, like, there's something wrong.
Yeah, you're crazy.
Yeah. So that's been
so
really
sad.
Exciting.
Yeah. I was definitely an extremely anxious kid about everything. Well, I guess that leads to becoming an anxious man, hence a podcast about it.
Yes. Yeah.
Look who we got here. It's our friends at My Software Tutor. Can Excel be my friend? Many people have wondered this for years. The answer is yes, it can. Excel doesn't have to be like the friend that your mom makes you hang out with in elementary school. It's weird. It's always stuff with boogers, right? What's wrong? What's up? Why is that kid always eating boogers? Their house always had the best snacks too. And there he is. Boogers. Well, Excel doesn't have to be like that weird kid. Unless you were that weird kid. Were you? Be honest. You know. I'm not actually asking. I can't hear your response, but you know. And it's okay if you were. You know, just take it easy with the boogers. Just talking about boogers to get ad read. Don't worry. They didn't write that part. That was an improvisation. My Software Tutor offers 3 levels of real-time Zoom-based courses with a live instructor. They deliver practical, functional business skills in a friendly and supportive environment. It can be daunting, right? You need that supporting environment to learn Excel. There's no stupid questions. It could be really difficult. And as we know, when we talk about it on this podcast all the time, it could be really daunting to learn something new and put yourself out there. So think of this as like a kindergarten for learning something new and helping your job prospects. Or be better at the job you already have. Get that raise, get that whatever, take pictures of it for Instagram. Yeah, that'll be cool. Keeping it as vague as possible so that you can input your own. Just making a mad lib of your own desires. These courses will increase your marketability, whether you're an employee, job seeker, consultant, or contractor. Register at mysoftwaretutor.com and use the promo code POD20 to save 20% off all registrations. Thank you so much to My Software Tutor. Yeah, guys, take advantage of that 20% off and confidently list Excel on your resume. Well, when's the right time for a parent to bring an anxious child to someone such as yourself?
As far as age, or as far as what symptoms?
Like what's going on in their lives that or behaviors that they're noticing?
This is a little bit of a non-answer, so I'll be more specific after. But I think
Okay.
a good rule of thumb for any family is that if you as a parent have found yourself thinking multiple times, gosh, I wonder if we should think about therapy. I wonder if a therapist could help. It is usually a pretty reliable indicator that whatever is going on is getting in the way of your day-to-day life enough that a therapist probably could help. And that threshold is going to be different for every child and every family. And I think more so than how pronounced anxiety is, or what specific kind of anxiety you're seeing is, that the amount that it is getting in the way of things in the family is probably the most important benchmark for me. That it happens sometimes that a family will come in and say, I think therapy might help. And I look and say, I think you're doing all right. And we all go our separate ways. But often if a parent has the intuition that something might be going on, at the very least, a short course of therapy can help everybody get coping skills to learn how to handle it. And I think in most cases, that can only help. As far as like specific things to look for, anytime you're seeing anxiety get in the way of getting to school, socializing, eating, or going to bed, those day-to-day activities that we have to get through, I think that is a really good sign that we've gone past the level of a child who worries a lot and into the zone of a child who could really use some ways to regulate. I also think if you're noticing that anxiety gets worse over time and not better, that's a good indicator. If something stressful happens to a child, it's pretty normal that we'll see worries kind of kick up into a higher gear for a while and then kind of come back down, especially if there's a big transition in the family. But if you have a big change like that or a big event and we see the anxiety come up and it doesn't come back down for months and either stays the same or becomes worse, that's a sign to me as well that we've maybe gone past a reaction to stress and into something that it would be good to get some help for. I would also say another characteristic that I think often is an indicator that therapy could be helpful is if you notice that you have a child whose anxiety responses are different than most other children of their age or their developmental level. So a lot of times the children I work with, parents will sort of describe them as having kind of a stronger response that has like a longer tail to it, where something that might sort of slightly set another child off course and they're upset for a few minutes and then they rally and they move on with their day really sends this child through the roof, and they are dealing with the after effects for a long time. So when you look at sort of your child's stress response compared to other kids of the same age and see, man, this seems like it's just bigger and it lasts for longer, that to me is also a sign that therapy could be helpful.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, we've all seen kids who fly off the handle and then 13 seconds later are just on to the next thing. I've forgotten about that. So that is good to differentiate.
Yeah.
You mentioned drama therapy. So we touched a little bit on play therapy, but I'm curious about drama therapy as well.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm laughing now knowing that you also have a theater background, because I feel like counseling is sort of a haven for anxious people. And then theater is also like a real haven for anxious. They both are really great places to be. You're trying to learn about yourself and trying to find joy and meaning in life. They're both really great.
Yeah.
So many drama therapists I find are people who started out in theater and then transitioned into therapy, largely for the reasons that you're saying. They realize that there's something really therapeutic about performance or about working, collaborating with others. Ensemble building is just such a powerful thing, and having that that tribe of people around you is so meaningful. So it can look many different ways, and there are many different sort of subcategories that pull different skills from theater and apply it in different ways. So it could be as sort of literal as I am directing and staging plays with a mental health population, right? And we're going through the whole theater process and creating theater together. That is drama therapy. It can be a form of improv that allows people to practice real life situations and try them again and see how different approaches of social skills or problem solving would pan out. That there are drama therapy forms like that. There's a really cool form that uses archetypal characters to explore parts of the self. That's really cool. Many different kinds. The way that I tend to use drama therapy is I play Dungeons and Dragons online with middle schoolers. So that's how I'm doing it.
Couldn't get friends to do it, so I went and found. No, I'm only kidding.
No, I mean, it's becoming an issue because I'm now playing D&D in my personal life and in my professional life, like many nights of the week.
That's great.
But there is sort of that. I don't know if you have D&D people in your life, but there's a big overlap, right? As like a role-playing, improv-based game that is great for anxiety, great for people who struggle with social anxiety in particular. If you are isolated during COVID and have not found that friend group that you need because you're doing online school or homeschooling, it forces a community, right? You get that sense of ensemble building through D&D. And weirdly, like in a way to similar way to slime, it's like a way that older kids are still allowed to have a sense of play. It's playful, but has some structure and rules to it that makes it feel safe and okay to be silly or goofy, I think. In that setting. Yeah.
Why do you think role playing is good for anxiety? Is it just creating a situation where you're stepping outside of yourself for a minute?
Yeah, I think it gives you permission to do things that you might not yet feel ready to do in your real life. I'm sure as like an improviser, you know this too, but when you're playing a character, you're not yourself, but you're not yourself. It's still coming from you. You're coming up with the character, you're figuring out what they would do. The impulse is still coming from you, but you might have permission to behave in a way that you as Patrick cannot, right? It's not allowed to do with like the social rules of your life. So there is a way that you can explore things in character or in a role that can broaden what it feels safe to do in real life, whether that's a really brash, strong, confident, smash barbarian character or somebody who's extremely charismatic and the face of the party or whatever. You're trying out these new roles, and there's an opportunity for something called exposure therapy within role play, where you can try out in a pretend space situations that might be really scary in real life. So speaking to new people, getting to know people, negotiating, being assertive, coming up with a plan as a team, all of those things that are sort of scary to do in real life, you can practice in role where the stakes are really low. But before you know it, you've practiced it enough times that you can start applying those skills to real life, to your day-to-day life.
That's so true. Oh my gosh. Just this Friday, I did a show at Theater 99 here in Charleston, and I played a character that was like kind of bubbly, but when a question would come at them, they would get really dark. And it felt like it was something the person, not Pat, the improviser, wanted to get off my chest. And I was like, that character was talking about depression, but it did feel as though I was putting out to this audience that I was having a rough week and I needed to express that. And so, I can back that up. And it's like, I remember being like, where did that even come from? Why did I feel that need? But just sharing this as a way to back up. I know exactly what you're describing here.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And it's that sort of what you went through, I might say, was projection, right? You projected your own feelings onto this character, and it was a way of expressing things that maybe would be hard or difficult to share about yourself. But because it's on this other person, it's now the socially okay way to talk about it and explore it. And so we see that a lot in play therapy as a whole, and especially in role play like we do in D&D.
Yeah, that's great. And it's also, at times it's nice to laugh about
Yeah.
insecurities in that way.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, you've got an event coming up. You know you got to send a card. So you get the card. It's looking good. You know, you chose a good one. You grab a pen. You grab a beverage of some kind, alcoholic, ginger ale. I've been big on the ginger ale lately. Even the diet. Am I just old? Maybe I'm just old. But you get all that. You sit down, and then your mind is blank. You don't know what to say. It can be daunting. There's a lot of pressure. You gotta fit it in a certain area and gotta look nice. Go easy on yourself. There's someone here to help you. Introducing the Cardist Studio. With so many birthdays and occasions, there's no time to shop for cards, write the cards, and buy the stamps. It's too many steps. So many chances for anxiety. Now you can do it all right where you sit. That's the best. That's the best. Because the Cardist Studio does it for you. They write it down for you. Introducing a writing specialist for the message inside your greeting cards. Don't get those canned responses. Have someone write something truly heartfelt. By the way, this is my friend Mary Alice who runs this company. She's very good. She sent me one of these. Whew. I know I said that in a joking tone, but I mean it. It was very thoughtful. She sent me one after my grandfather passed away. It means a lot. I still have the card. I mean, that shows you all you need to know. All right, here's how it works. All you do is pick the card and tell why you're sending it. No more errands. No more anxiety. For a message from your heart, but not your hands. It's okay. You still mean it. Sit back and just enjoy your relationships. Wouldn't that be nice? TheCardistStudio.com. Thoughtful, just got easy. And you can use the promo code AnxietyPod for 10% off all orders. All right, friends, get out there and send those greeting cards from the Cardist Studio. This conversation was great. It's been so fun to dive into slime here. Do you think there's anything I'm missing related to play therapy, drama therapy, or slime?
Something that I've noticed, I was thinking about before this, that I've noticed about how kids use slime that could be useful for you. I have noticed that when children first start therapy with me, they're really, really, really into slime. Every week it's slime. Let's go make slime. Let's go make slime. For maybe 3 sessions, 4 sessions, and it gets to a point where I become concerned, are we just going to make slime all the time? Am I going to have to set a limit here? We can't just always be making slime. Mm-hmm. I will go crazy, and also we got to do other stuff. But what I have found is that for most kids, it's like a very self-limiting activity where they do it a few times, they have that really rich sensory experience, and they're ready on their own to move on to other stuff that often involves more abstract thought, more direct sharing about their experience, sort of higher level activities. And there are some theories about play therapy that suggest that kids move through play therapy almost in the way that the brain is sort of organized, starting with lower level brainstem type stuff, which is like body sensations, sensory information, all that stuff that's sort of lower in the brain. And that play therapy tends to progress along that same line towards emotion regulation, talking about feelings, and then concrete thought and skills, and then abstract thought and meaning making. And I don't know, I'll have to look at the data to know if that's true for the reasons of neurobiology, but I definitely see that in my office, that it's sort of a gateway to therapy, and that kids seem to find what they need from having those grounding experiences early on, and then they feel safe and regulated enough to continue on to harder stuff.
It's like checking boxes at lower levels and bonding with you in that sense.
Yeah, like they're kind of getting back in touch with themselves. They're developing an awareness of their senses. They're more in the here and now. And I wonder if that helps them become more mindful in my office, which then makes it easier to kind of access that state later on and feel ready to go on to doing more active therapeutic activities. Yeah.
That's so interesting. I mean, I definitely have a ton of anxiety, hence the podcast and trying to interview mental health professionals such as yourself. But I can empathize with the sense that if there's no pressure, right? All we're doing is making slime. That is right. Like I can see how that's such an easy way. All right, that's all I have to focus on, because sometimes the buildup with these conversations is like, what is it going to be like? What is Katie going to say? What is she going to ask? Is she going to judge me? And then it's like, oh, we're just making slime. Okay.
Yeah. And you've got to build that rapport, right? If we come in on the first session, we've just met each other, whatever age you are, and I say, like, tell me the deepest, darkest worry you've ever had, that's not going to feel great. So having a chance to get to know each other first is really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. Or how can people connect with you if they want to either come see you, jump in on a Dungeons and Dragons game, or if you have anything social media wise that you'd like to plug?
Absolutely. I have a few ways that you can get in touch if that is what you would like to do. My website is katielear.com, KATIELEAR.com. If you are in Florida or New York or North Carolina, I can see you for online therapy. And if you're in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, I could see you potentially in person. If you are not in one of those states or that's not what you're looking for, I have a coping skills course called Worry-Free Teens that's also available through my website that is specifically for anxious kids from ages 8 to 13. So it is just a pack of coping skills that kids can use either while you're on a waiting list to find a therapist or just as a form of self-help before considering therapy as a next step. My Dungeons and Dragons groups are available at youngdragonslayers.com.
Yeah.
So you could check that out, and that's available in all 50 states. And I have a book coming out through Simon & Schuster in July about managing childhood grief for children. So that's called A Parent's Guide to Managing Childhood Grief.
That's incredible. Well, my other podcast is called Death Space Filling the Void. So
I'm angry because I just found it and I listened to 2 episodes and I was like, where was this? Why did I not know 3 months ago as I was working on this book? It is an awesome resource. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when that book comes out, let's do an interview for that.
Fabulous. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. It's been
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your day.
One thing I didn't realize was that like making the slime was the activity, so to speak. Not so to speak. That's literally what she said, Pat. All right. See, this is what happens when you record the intro by yourself. You end up talking to yourself. But yeah, it looks like a lot of fun. It's like a fidget spinner or something. I could see how doing schoolwork or whatever and just like playing around with it would be a lot of fun. But it makes sense that making it would be fun too. I remember a toy I had growing up was like creepy crawlers, and you would pour this like mixture. It's kind of like a easy bake oven to make little toy bugs. So you pour the mixture in, and then on this metal plate, and you put it into the machine, and it kind of like bakes them. Not edible, though. I'm sure somebody sued because they had eaten them, because they look like the sour worms and stuff like that, I guess. And making them was probably more fun than having like the little, millipede or centipede or whatever it was, and giant roaches and stuff like that. So I definitely understand. I'm not a full old man on this thing. Hey, kids making their slime. Yeah, that's what I sound like. A lot of voices this episode. It's probably the lack of sleep. Well, anyway, thank you so much to Katie, and thank you to you for listening. I want to mention my other podcast, Death Space Filling the Void, available wherever you get your podcasts, or go to deathspacepodcast.com. There's also the Buy Me a Coffee link. If you want to support the show, you can throw a small donation my way, and that would be incredibly appreciated. Be sure to sign up with Instacart through the link in the description wherever you're listening. That helps support the show by telling Instacart you heard about their offer through the show. Also, check out my Software Tutor with the promo code POD20 for 20% off, and the Carta Studio with the promo code AnxietyPod for 10% off your order. And also, I'll also have Katie's website in the description wherever you're listening too, if you want to follow up with her or get a D&D game going. Right? That sounds fun. I don't know why I laughed ever. It does sound fun. Well, as always, thank you so much for listening. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you on Thursday.